This is Boss Snikrot. New model that just came out for him. It's freaking awesome. However, I have the original, and that is my favorite. It's personal preference. I was lucky enough to have painted up some old commandos, and I made an urban camo theme on the pants, and that came out fantastic. I'd never done anything like that before, and I hope I can recreate it if I have to. But these are the, I think the original commando models. I had like 2 sets, maybe 4 boys and a knob, so 10 altogether. And then I had some extra bits, and I painted up some other guys in the same scheme. But now we're relegated to 10 commandos. I had switched up the head on one of them. It still matches the scheme, but we're gonna go with the different head on this one, and we're gonna get a unit of 10. Here goes the burner boy, and then 8 slugger chopper boys and the power claw knob. And the awesome part is all of these guys are metal, and it fits. It fits. So I haven't used Boss Snikrot at all, or Commandos at all this edition. Figured it's time we change that. So just touching up Boss Snikrot. Like I said, it's been a few, well, more than a few. It's been a bunch of years since I last painted him. So looking over the model, there was actually some metal bits on him that I hadn't removed. So we ended up going over a few bits with some green. Want to repaint the boots and some of the leather bits. All of this is, just touch up paint and everything else, and by the time we're finished, he's going to be in superb condition, ready for the tabletop. Now, I'm pretty good with the way he looks already, but I've become a little bit of a better painter since I started, and I have a few more techniques I can experiment with, so that's what we're gonna do. As it stands, though, this model is just awesome. He's always been super great to me. And the new one is good too. I wasn't not going to get it, but as far as running him as Snikrot, I got the original, and that's perfectly fine for me. I think the new one I can convert into something, possibly one of the new Big Mech HQs. I could potentially, the goggles lend itself to looking very mechish, and then I'll just alternate the arms. I'll use the blade arms for something else. But I love the pose of this model, how he's telling people to shut up, basically. You got the shh, and just going in with a little Warboss green, just to try to fill in some of the areas that may have been missed. Looking over it, you always notice some things after the fact. I had missed some of the straps on the back of the neck holding the goggles on. Bunch of other leather bits. And so far we're just using just the 2 basic paints just to fill in the original misses. In my toolkit, I use a bunch of different other paints. Like I do use contrast paints, but not exclusively. There's certain contrast paints that I swear by, but it's I use it as a supplement to regular painting, like regular acrylic paints. Because in my opinion, if I use exclusively contrast paint, sometimes the models look a little faded to me. That could be, maybe that's just the technique I was using or whatever. So what I do like to do is use to supplement, maybe go on top of what I've already done. As you can see here, I had to fill in his boots just to give it a little bit more personality. The original version that I had was unpainted boots. He was just the primer only was, but you know, it was good enough. And that, again, I'm super happy with the way the pants had come out, and like I'd like to recreate that at some point. I don't know how. I don't even know how I did it the first time. I was just like, let me just try something, and it came out like super awesome, and I was able to recreate it like 10 more times with the Red Skull Commandos. So that's their exclusive. This there we go. It's I guess the Space Wolves color, Rust Gray, I think. Is and then okay, so now we're gonna do shading, right? I think the better shade to use, occasionally I use like a Beal Tan Green or whatever from Citadel, but in this case I'm using the Athonian Camoshade. First off, Camoshade, it sounds like a mercenary, like some military stuff. Sounds like it was, and it's a darker color, and I do like how it looks over the it's not Waaaaagh Flesh, it's the Warboss green. And I'm sure that there's I've heard other ways, other techniques of adding shading to models. However, there's so much painting involved in general that any shortcuts are welcome. And I don't actually think of this as a shortcut. This adds a lot of definition and personality to the model. And you know what I mean? This is all hand painting stuff. So I'm not cheating by any stretch of the imagination. And this is another tool in my toolkit. So it's wonderful. Just like a little touch up on the pants. Just, you know, sometimes when you're painting, the other colors bleed into where you don't want them, and you just got to adjust. So it goes. Now this brown, Doombull brown, is just a base color. It's just basing up the leather bits and the pieces of the backpack, the belts, the straps holding on the mask, the boots. But once all that's layered in, I can fill in, just fill in the spots that, you know, once that's layered in, that's when we'll be getting into the contrast paints. And I'll show you specifically which ones I prefer, which ones I like to go into. As you see, I keep going back and forth with the paints because once you hit one, there's always something else that you missed. So you gotta, you know, I'm not a perfectionist, but sometimes I can be. So to make sure I hit all the spots. Again, especially for an HQ and somebody as awesome as Boss Snikrot, you gotta go crazy. Okay, so this is new from the sort of the contrast line, the contrast paint line. It's Wraithbone. Now this is more, you could put this as like a base color, and when I use this, it allows me to kind of cover up other like mistakes, because what I can do is lay this down, and then over it I can put a contrast paint, and it kind of it I think this is a good base. That and the gray sear as well, it works pretty nicely for whatever it is that I end up doing using the contrast. As you can see, I just used it on the skulls that are hanging from his belt, his trophies, and you'll see why in a moment. This is where I realized that those were not pieces of the mask. They were belts, belt straps that were hanging, and for some reason I originally thought they were like antenna or something. All right, fix it up. She's looking really good. Okay, here we go. Now this is one of my favorite contrast paints. This is Snakebite leather, appropriately named after the orc clan. But I always do a base coat of regular brown. Doesn't have to be the same cut one. This one is Doombull. Sometimes I use a different brown, maybe a lighter brown if I so choose. But then after that, I've used the Snakebite leather to go over it, and it just adds so much depth and contrast to the model, and it really brings it out. And that's been my technique. It doesn't have to be. I don't go right on the model over the Wraithbone. I generally go with a brown first of some kind. It could be really dark brown, whatever, but the Snakebite leather goes on after, and that just really brings it all together. Like, this is one of the few. There's a couple of contrast paints that I will swear by, and this is one of them. Like, I can't go back. This is really, I love this paint. I love it. And with contrast paints, I mean, you can dilute it. There's a medium that you can use. I choose to kind of go right from the pot. I just don't I make sure I don't have too much excess, because if you have too much on the brush, it can start dripping and leaking into spots where you don't want it. You know, you don't want it to get on the nicely painted camo jeans or on the flesh or something, and then you have to do some cleanup. That's kind of annoying. As long as you work carefully, make sure you have a decent amount on the brush, but not too much. You don't want to oversaturate it. And these are small detail pieces anyway. So like the belts and the belt buckles and the straps and whatever have you, they have to, you have to kind of have a little bit of precision with what you're doing. So, getting into why I'm actually using Boss Snikrot, as you know, I've been running like Dread Mob since the Orc Codex dropped out. It's been like exclusively Dread Mob. I mean, at this point, I'm going to start running a few other things. I'd like to just check and see what other options there are. Dread Mob is good. I like the fact that it has answers to pretty much things I can't normally address as an orc player. Like if I'm doing a lot of charging or whatever, if there's tanks and stuff that are just hidden or stuck or dug in, how am I going to get there? I need some range. So that's why I run Dread Mob. But I've noticed that sometimes people there's a lot of infiltration, especially in Pariah Nexus. I need to block that. I need to block your scouts. I don't need you in my face. You're trying to block me. And then if I get stuck in my deployment zone, it's a bad game. So I was like, yo, let me bring Snikrot out. Let me do some infiltration with him. Okay, just real quick. This is from the Army Painter. This is a gold. I like that I made his Gork's teeth or Mork's teeth, one of them. I made them gold, and it really came out good. I like the way it looks. So this wasn't the original paint, but it matches, and I'm going to use it to bring these blades out. So shout out to the Army Painter. I'm not like an exclusive Citadel fanboy. I go where the paint is best. So back to it. I do like that Snikrot has an awesome redeploy, and he can redeploy with his commandos. He can redeploy by himself, but when he's by himself, he's a lone op. That's pretty nasty. But the idea that I can block people from getting too close to me, because I need you at some distance. You know, I can punch, but I would prefer to be a little bit more tactical. And now that we mention it, there's a new detachment that just came out, the Tactical Brigade, which is disgusting. And Boss Snikrot just happens to be one of the centerpieces of that. Pretty dope. Here we're using Blood Angels Red, which is another contrast paint. It's going over a red I've already put down. It adds a little shade. Back to the Snakebite leather. Anyways, Tactical Brigade, Boss Snikrot can give orders, which is very, very like him to do, especially in as like a blood axe or commando kind of character. The fact that we can give orders now, like guard players, is I kind of like that. And to be honest, I'm strongly considering putting Dread Mob down for a second so I could try this thing out. It's really nasty. I love the idea of it. And just have him be like the warlord, and although commandos, I do like them. I like their utility. I do feel like at sometimes they may be a little too expensive for what they can actually do. You know what I mean? Like, they do the infiltration thing, they block you out. That's cool. But then they kind of just die. Which is, I mean, sure. They are orcs essentially, but they also can't be overwatched, which is a nice thing, and they automatically have stealth and cover. But I would like them to be a little bit more efficient for their points cost. 120 points worth a 10-man unit that can infiltrate. Maybe. I mean, maybe a little bit more survivability or something. Either way, there's some play here. You know what I mean? There's some play. And so, okay, this Now we're getting into another of my my favorite contrast paints. This is Skeleton Horde. This is not number 2. This is number 1 or number 3. It's in the top 3 of my favorite. This is okay. Now this is where Wraithbone is the base color, and I can use that, the Skeleton Horde, to put over like the teeth, bone bits, the skulls, it just that's really nice. It's actually one of my more favorite things to use right now. We got Nuln oil that I'm using. The Nuln oil goes over the metal bits. I like that. I like the what it does to it. It gives it like a dull. It's like I guess it's like a black wash essentially, but when it goes over metal, it just looks really, especially with orcs, it looks really I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it's fantastic. So that's my method. Nuln oil on the metal. Skeleton Horde on the teeth and bones, especially over a Wraithbone base. Usually I do sometimes Biltan green, for different models. And maybe there's other shades. I like to use different colors of green with my orcs. I don't always use the same ones. But for this, and maybe the other commandos moving forward, I'm thinking Athonian Camoshade. I mean, he's looking really good already. You know, just finishing up. This is Agrax Earthshade. Now this is to dirty up and muddy up some of the other bits. You know, I don't want my orcs looking too clean. You know, that's not, you know, maybe if there are bad moons that might fly. But Athonian Camoshade when all else fails, you know, for the other spots that you don't necessarily, not too sure where you want to put a shade on, that works there. Here I'm just putting the little final highlights on the belt buckles, trying to accentuate the metal bits come out. You know, painting some of the ropes on the trophies. Snikrot's been out here killing Umis, as you do. So, time to base. This is another piece of essentially barbed wire from the army painter. You know, he's been in the battlefield, so I'm gonna make it look accordingly. Like that. Some flock. I decided against it, actually, but we have some battlefield debris, some grass tufts, and for this basing job, I'm going to use Armageddon dust. This is a technical paint from Citadel. Here I put I like to spread it around, gave it some texture, you know, like he's in the actual battlefield. And it makes sense. I think in the lore, Snikrot has a significant role in the Battle of Armageddon, so it tracks. Checks out. Generally pretty careful not to get it on the model and mess up my nice paint job. Occasionally if it gets on the boots, it's not too terrible, because he's technically standing in the dirt. So I mean that would make sense. But I am very cautious with doing stuff. I don't want to get it too much on any given area where I don't want it. Make sure everything's good. Let the rocks set. You gotta magnetize my boy. Make it for easier transport, you know? Now we have to paint the base. It's part of the completion step. Here I'm using Steel Legion Drab. I'd kind of like how that looks as a base color. And then this is after I didn't show you all the touch-up work, but I had to touch up all of these guys, and I gave them all different grass tufts and the same scheme as I did with Snikrot. It makes sense because there's crew, the Red Skull Commandos. Used Athonian Camoshade on all of them. It was a similar process with the Nuln oil and the different paint schemes or whatever else I used. It came out really nice. And the Red Skull Commandos, baby. Boss Snikrot.